Today, we're going to be looking at a passage that is, I don't want to say it's bigger than the Bible, but there are some stories in the Bible that people outside of church know. You know, so like Samson and Delilah is a story. Like they had a Las Vegas show on Samson and Delilah. Y'all might not have known that, but it ran for almost 40 years. And so people outside of the church would know things like Samson and Delilah, David and Goliath. There are books written about David and Goliath that from people who are not making a spiritual point, but they're using that as a springboard to tell you some other stories that they believe to be important. Daniel and the Lion's Den is one of those stories that it's a Sunday school story. That's how I would describe it. It's a Sunday school story. So I grew up in Sunday school, and I remember distinctly Daniel on the flannel board and the lions on the flannel board. And that's for all the old people in here who know what a flannel board is. The young people are like, I have no idea what he's talking about. But it was, I remember, you know, seeing it distinctly and how it all played out and in Sunday school and how the teacher would move them around. Or if you had a real creative teacher, she would let you move the animals around on the flannel board, you know. And so we all know that story. And for the most part this year, I have avoided those big stories of the Bible. I haven't talked about them. I hadn't preached from them. As a matter of fact, I've preached some texts that I never would have normally have chosen. I mean, some really strange texts where I have gotten to Saturday night and gone, you really made a mistake, buddy. You should not have chosen this text. But it has worked out. But today is a story that I think everybody will know, or at least most people will know. I don't have to give a lot of backstory to it, but I'm going to read the entire story and we'll talk about it. Today I want to talk about the challenges of being chosen. The challenges of being chosen. I hear people make wishes all the time that if they were granted those wishes, they are completely unprepared for them. You know, the movie business has made lots of money on movies made where people were given 3 wishes, right? I don't know why it's 3. Do y'all know? I don't have any idea why the magic number is 3, but you've been given 3 wishes, you know. And usually by the time they've made the second wish, they have made such a mess of their life that the third wish is, I want to go back to whatever I had before. Just fix it all, you know. I don't want to do this again. And I think that sometimes we wish for things because we think if we had that, life would be great. If we just could have this one thing. And what we don't realize is the one thing brings with it a whole lot of other challenges, issues, maybe even problems that come along with it. And I will hear people wish for things that I 100% know they are not prepared for. The number one thing I hear people wish for is a spouse. These are people who have not been married or who have been single a really long time and their memory has faded so much that they have no recollection of the challenges. And they want to get married because they have some specific problems that they want to solve, right? If I can get married, A, B, and C. And that's true, okay? It does solve some problems. But it also brings some things into your life that you had no idea. Like you had no clue. You may have went to premarital counseling. You may have watched your parents. You may have read 22 books, but it brought things into your life you had no idea were going to take place. I hear people ask for that. I hear people say, oh, I just wish I had children. Or I wish I had a girl, or I wish I had a boy, and I had both, and they have challenges. It don't matter which one it is, right? Both have a specific challenge. I hear people say, oh, if I could just get this promotion. you know, or if I just owned my own business. That's my favorite. When people say that, I just wish I owned my own business, because I've got 2 or 3 that I can hook them up with. And after about 30 days, they would decide that it wasn't as great as they thought it was, you know. So I hear people ask for these wishes, or, you know, if I was just rich. And often on the rich side, people will say, you know, especially when the lottery gets really big, if I could just win the lottery, it would change my life. And there's lots of statistics about the lottery. I mean, you can just go read and see all of the struggles that lottery winners have had. But there is a thing about degrees of separation. How many degrees are you separated from? I think it's 6 degrees, or you're separated from everybody. So you're 6 people from anybody in the world. So about 20 years ago on Christmas Day, this guy who when I say I'm 1 degree from, what I mean is I do not know him personally, but I know some people really close to me that are really close to him. Okay, so that's what I mean when I'm 1 degree away from somebody. I'm really close to some people that know him really, really well. His name was Jack. And about 20 years ago at that time, Jack won the largest lottery at that time from a single ticket in the United States of America. It was somewhere around $325 or $350 million. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was a single ticket winning 20 years ago. It was a crazy, crazy amount of money. It's been surpassed a few times since then, but at that time, it was the largest win of all time. Jack was a good man from everything I know of him. He ran a construction company. He was a faithful church attender in the tribe that I grew up in. So if you want to know how I know him, we were in the same tribe, church tribe, denomination, whatever you want to call it. We were in that same tribe. And he won, it was $315 million. He took the one-time payout, which was like $115 million after taxes. So that's how much he got in a single sum. Of that $115 million, Jack gave 10% of it to lots of churches in the denomination I was a part of. Several of them built multi-million-dollar facilities from his contributions alone. It was a windfall for some small churches in West Virginia. That's where he was from. It was a windfall for some small churches in West Virginia. And they were able to do that because of Jack's philanthropy. He took another $14 million and started a foundation that would feed hungry people and help clothe people who were less fortunate. The lady that served biscuits at the store where he bought his ticket, he bought her a new house, a new Jeep Grand Cherokee, and gave her $44,000 in cash. Like, he was very generous. I mean, she scored just for selling him the ticket and serving biscuits. But Jack was not prepared for the lottery. You may know his story. I don't know. There have been lots of stories written about Jack. I'm not saying his whole name, but there's been lots of stories written about Jack. But Jack was not prepared for winning the whole lottery. The first indication that Jack was not prepared for winning the whole lottery was his truck got broken into at a strip club in West Virginia. There are so many things that I want to say right here that are probably inappropriate. But, like, if I had won the lottery, I don't think, and I wanted to go to a strip club, West Virginia is probably not like where I'm. Y'all know what I'm saying. His truck got broken into, and in his truck, they took his briefcase, which contained $540,000 in cash. And when he called the police, listen, This is a clear sign you're not prepared for the lottery if you carry around $500,000 in cash, okay? And they asked him, why would you have $500,000 in cash? And he said, because I can. That's a sermon right there. Like I could pick a text and preach an entire sermon on people who have been stupid because they could. Right? Because I can is never an intelligent reason to do much of anything. Okay? And so he loses $545,000. I don't know. I mean, and the fact that he called 911 from the strip club, being a deacon at his church, like I would have drove down to the convenience store. Now y'all see what kind of criminal I am. I would have at least went somewhere else, like, you're right, before I called and said, hey, my truck's been broken into. But then some really bad things started happening. There were lots of drugs that ended up in his circle, and he had a granddaughter die, and other people die on his property from drug use because there was just so much money floating around. And in the end, what should have really been a life-changing blessing became a curse. And I hear people all the time wish for things. And listen, if you win the lottery, I'm going to cheer you on. But I'm also going to pray for you. Because if you're not prepared, you're going to get handed some things that you don't know how to deal with, and it can destroy you. When people get married, I'm happy for you. I'm excited for you. Man, I hope that day comes off without a hitch, and the sun is shining, and the birds are singing, and everybody's happy. But I'm praying for you because you have wished for something that many people are not prepared for. That promotion, I hope you get it. The promotion that you're wanting to get at work, the raise that you're hoping to get, that change in your life, that business you're wanting to start. Man, I really do. I hope that if it is God's will, that it happens in your life. The problem is, if you get it and you're unprepared, it very well could destroy you. Here is why. Anytime you take a step forward, there will always be somebody trying to take you two back. Always, 100% of the time. So today, in the challenges of being chosen, there are three things I want to talk to you about. Here's the first thing. Your gift will open doors, but create enemies. What we want are the blessings that come with a gift. We want the money that a 44-inch vertical jump will bring to us. Right? 44 inches is a pretty significant vertical jump. It has been for a long time. If you can stand flat-footed and jump 44 inches, there are at least a few things you can do to make money. Okay? It may be play basketball. It may be, be an Olympic athlete. And by the way, they're typically not broke. You might, because of some sponsorships and stuff that they have. There are lots of ways we could find a way for you to make money. The problem is we want the blessings that come with the 44-inch jump. We just don't want the burdens that come with the 44-inch jump. We want the fame. We want the fame of having a hit song. But we don't want the burden that comes with having a hit song. And I could put that in a blank if I could just whatever. I mean, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of things that people say, oh man, if I could just do this. And what they want are the blessings of doing something and not the struggles that come with doing something. Here's what I would tell you. On the other side of every door is an enemy looking to ruin your opportunity. Every single door that gets open for you, there is somebody trying to bring you down. Not some, not part of the time, not even most of the time. Every single door that gets open for you, there is somebody trying to bring you down. So let's go back to the beginning of Daniel chapter 6. It says, Darius the Mede decided to divide the kingdom into 120 provinces, and he appointed a high officer to rule over each province. So let me tell you what has just happened. This is Daniel's third king, all right? So we have Nebuchadnezzar. We have Nebuchadnezzar's son, chapter 5. A hand has appeared in the room and written on the wall, and Nebuchadnezzar's son is the king, and Daniel comes in and interprets it and tells him he's going to die, that his time draws near, and sure enough he dies, and Darius the Mede becomes the king. The kingdom's going to be split, and so he becomes the king. And he says he decided to divide the kingdom into 120 provinces, so that would be like states, or for us, or counties probably. And he appointed a high officer to rule over each province. So you got 120 provinces, you got 120 rulers. The king also chose Daniel and 2 others as administrators to supervise the high officers and protect the king's interests. So you have 120 rulers, commissioners, whatever you want to call them, governors, high officers, what it says here, to rule over the territories. And then above them, you have Daniel and 2 other people. They might be called governors or prime ministers, ever how you want to see it. They're administrators to supervise the high officers. It says, Daniel soon proved himself more capable than all the other administrators and high officers. Because of Daniel's great ability, the king made plans to place him over the entire empire. So if you go back to Daniel chapter 1, you find that Daniel gains favor with the king. You go to Daniel chapter 5, the previous chapter, Daniel gains favor with the king because he does something. Even in Daniel chapter 5, he gets a robe and put on him, and he gets elevated to a high position, even though he's told the king, you're going to die. And so here we find him also making or gaining influence because he's more capable than everybody else. And because of his ability, the king made plans to place him over the entire empire. So Daniel was going to be the single ruler over all of the other high rulers. Now, let me tell you what happens. When you start climbing a ladder, not asking you to raise your hand, when you start climbing a ladder, there will inevitably be somebody at the bottom shaking it, trying to get you to fall. Inevitably trying to get you to fail. There's always somebody there trying to knock you off, kick you down, hurt you, destroy you. And it says this, then the other administrators and high officers began searching for some fault in the way Daniel was handling government affairs. But they couldn't find anything to criticize or condemn. He was faithful, always responsible, and completely trustworthy. Dear Heavenly Father, bring us those people today. Right? Amen. It says, so they concluded, our only chance of finding grounds for accusing Daniel will be in connection with the rules of his religion. It says that everything was fine until he started gaining favor. And notice the word, then. There are people that are fine as long as you suffer. They're fine as long as you're mediocre. They're fine as long as you're average. They're fine as long as you have the same job title as them. They're fine as long as everything's going the same. They're fine as long as your house is not bigger than theirs, or your car's not newer than theirs, or your clothes aren't better than theirs. They're fine as long as they get to go further away than you get to go further away. They get 2 weeks vacation while you get 1. They're fine as long as that happens. But then you get ahead of them, and they are going to look for ways to harm you, to bring you down. Like, there are people who are happy as long as your marriage is bad. There are. You're like, no, preacher, there are people. Oh, yeah, there are lots of people who it makes their day to find out you and your spouse are fighting. It makes their day to find out there's conflict in your home. It makes their day. It makes their day when they find that out. But the minute that you come and say, oh man, we've been to counseling, life has changed, the world is great, they're not so happy. But don't you remember? Well, I saw. Well, what about this? There are people always that at the moment you move ahead of them, they're going to have problems. And it is the minute you gain, and I would say it is a crippler to potential, because we so desperately want to be liked by people, we would rather stay average than to be disliked. You understand, Daniel could just been an average dude. He could have been an average leader doing average things. He could have acted like they acted, cheated like they cheated, lived like they lived, and they never would have said anything. The minute, though, he starts gaining favor with the king, they want to bring him down. And I think you can read lots of psychological studies that it cripples people's advancement in companies because they find a tribe they like and they would rather stay than to move up, because they know the minute that they take a promotion, they're going to lose some friends. And so they stay in a job that's below their ability because they don't want to lose the people who are below them. It happens all of the time in our life. And here's what I would tell you about greatness. You will never achieve greatness if your goal is to be liked. You just won't. If you got to be liked by everybody, you will always do what everybody else wants. You'll be a people pleaser. And I'll be honest with you, I'm at the other end of the spectrum. I'm a people ticker offer by nature. I'm not a people pleaser. Like that's not my nature. To just I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. As a matter of fact, if I know you want to hear it, I'm more likely to tell you something completely opposite. It's just my nature. And that's not good either. But if you're a people pleaser, you will struggle. And listen, I don't mean like a bull. There's a difference between being liked and like a bull. Everybody should be like a bull. You shouldn't be a jerk. Okay, being a jerk doesn't mean you're great. You're just a great jerk. Being likable and being liked are two. If you are going to do anything worthwhile, there are going to be people who do not like it. That's just my experience in life. And here's the thing I would tell you about your gift. Your gift can be your greatest blessing and your heaviest burden at the same time. Your gift can be your greatest blessing and your heaviest burden at the same time. And here's the other thing I would tell you. If you are a person of faith, there is a 100% chance they're aiming at you. A 100% chance they're aiming at you. If you have your faith anywhere front and center for people to see, there's a 100% chance they're gunning for you. And if you can pretend like they're not, but they are. Here's the second thing. Someone is always trying to bring you down. You're like, preacher, I thought you said this was going to be a little more uplifting. It will be. We'll get there in a minute. I have found that people are not satisfied to slow you down. They want to bring you down. Hurt people hurt people. Miserable people want you to be miserable. Angry people want you to be angry. It's just the pattern. Like that's what I see in people. Like it's just repetitive over and over and over and over again. And if you've received any type of promotion, there is somebody somewhere that is trying to take that from you. There is somebody that's not happy about it. There's somebody, honestly, that will do whatever they can to take it away from you. And sometimes, listen, sometimes you know who it is. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Sometimes you don't. Here's what I would tell you. And it's 100% a miserable person. I have never met a joy-filled, Holy Spirit-filled person who wanted to bring somebody else down. I have met lots of miserable people who wanted other people to be miserable. But I have not met a joy-filled person who was trying to do that was fulfilled in their life, that was trying to do what God wanted him to do, that was trying to bring somebody else down. I just haven't seen it. Not manipulative anyway. I haven't seen that in anybody's life. And so it says this. So the administrators and high officers went to the king and said, "Long live King Darius." If you butter him up, how about it? Right? You know, let's appeal to his ego. We all have an ego. You got an ego. I got an ego. We all got egos. Appeal to his ego. Long live the king. We are all in agreement, we administrators, officials, high officers, advisors, and governors, that the king should make a law that will be strictly enforced. Give orders that for the next 30 days, any person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except to you, your majesty, will be thrown into the den of lions. And now, your majesty, issue and sign this law so it cannot be changed, an official law of the Medes and Persians that cannot be revoked. The king, ignorant. That's what I'm going to call him. I'm going to call him ignorant, because he's going to realize what he's done later. He's going to be like, oh, just for 30 days, people are going to worship me. They're going to be, this is going to be great. We're just going to have one big old party. He doesn't realize that what they're doing is setting up a person that he really likes for failure. It says, so King Darius signed the law. But when Daniel learned that the law had been signed, he went home and knelt down as usual in his upstairs room with its windows open toward Jerusalem. Go Daniel. Right? Now some of y'all are getting scared right now. I know. It's okay. He prayed 3 times a day, just as he had always done, giving thanks to his God. Then the officials went together to Daniel's house and found him praying and asking for God's help. So they went straight to the king and reminded him about his law. So they make this law knowing that Daniel is going to do what he has always done, which is pray to his God. Daniel finds out about the law. He's not ashamed of it. He don't go in the room and close the windows and close the doors and say, God, next 30 days I'm going to have to whisper, but I'm going to be faithful. It's not what he does. He opens the door, prays just as loud as he always had, with his face toward Jerusalem, just like he had always done. And when they came, they got evidence. And they went back and told the king, did you not sign a law for the next 30 days? Any person who prays to anyone, divine or human, except to you, your majesty, will be thrown into the den of lions? Yes, the king replied, that decision stands. It is an official law of the Medes and Persians that cannot be revoked. Then they told the king, that man Daniel, one of the captives from Judah, notice they got to throw that in, is ignoring you and your law. He still prays to his God 3 times a day. Hearing this, the king was deeply troubled, and he tried to think of a way to save Daniel. He spent the rest of his day looking for a way to get Daniel out of this predicament. Let me stop right here. I don't just want to speak to some people who have been snookered. You have been hoodwinked. You have been lied to or manipulated into a deceptive situation, and now you have a problem on your hands. Nobody lied to you. They just manipulated you, and they brought you into their circle, and now you're trying to look for a way out. You have to protect your integrity. You have to do the right thing. You've got to do what you said, but you've been roped into something that you had no plans to be roped into. That's exactly what's going on in this story. The king has been roped into a situation. Had he known on the front side what their motives were. This is why discernment is so important. It's important if you're the king. It's important if you're Daniel. It's important no matter what you do to have discernment, because there are going to be some people who approach you with a smile on their face and sugar on their lips, and they're going to tell you what you want to hear, but their intent is to manipulate you into something that is deceptive and destructive, and you're going to regret it. And I believe all of us in this room have found ourselves roped in. Somebody told us something. They told us some gossip or some manipulative messages, and we got all involved and worked up about something. And then when we got worked up about it, we realized, oh, Lord, what have I got myself into? It says in the evening, the men went together. So they gave the king some time. In the evening, the men went together to the king and said, Your Majesty, you know that according to the law of the Medes and Persians, no law that the king signs can be changed. So at last, the king gave orders for Daniel to be arrested and thrown into the lion's den. I don't know how you respond, but man, it is difficult to respond right when you've done the right thing and the wrong thing has happened. Daniel's done the right thing, but the wrong thing has happened. And I would tell you that the times, I think, the places where our integrity is challenged the most is in prosperity, plenty, favor, promotion, ever what word you want to use. The Bible would tell you that. Broke, busted, and disgusted ain't a real challenge to following after God, because you ain't got nobody else to trust in except God when you get to the bottom of the barrel. And it's when you think you're at the top of the mountain, your integrity will be challenged. The second place your integrity will be challenged is when adversity comes into your life, when you've done the right thing but the wrong result has taken place. Daniel's done the right thing. He's acted with integrity and he served God the way he should, but he gets arrested and thrown into the lion's den. So what do you do in those moments? Sometimes you just have to wait on God to turn the tables. Sometimes you just have to be quiet. There are times when people will lie about you, and the best thing you can do is shut your mouth. Just be quiet. I can't tell you how many times I've told people here in this church, put your head down, keep your mouth shut, do the right thing, and in the end, now I can't tell you how long the end's going to be. See, you want the end to be tomorrow. And the end might be 30 days from now. It might be 3 years from now. It might be 20 years from now. But in the end, you're going to be fine. The problem comes in when we jump up and we try to defend ourselves and we try to set people straight. And I got to be honest with you, there are times that I hear things, I have privileged information, or I know something, or I know exactly how something happened, and I want to speak up and say, you are mistaken. But I can't. All I can do is keep my mouth shut, do the right thing, and I know that over time people will see. I've seen it play out numerous times. There have been very few times in my life where I tried to resolve it myself and fix it, jump up and start shuffling and speaking and telling everybody that it turned out okay. But I can tell you lots of times where I just put my head down, did the right thing, and in the end, people go, oh, yeah, okay, I see now. I understand. It says, the king said to him, may your God, whom you serve so faithfully, rescue you. There's so many, like this piece of this, I would love to preach a sermon on Darius the Mede, on how not to be snookered into situations that you shouldn't be, and the trouble that comes into your life when you're having to wish somebody well that you're throwing. I mean, I don't know if y'all have ever fired anybody. I've fired a few people in my lifetime. I don't know if y'all have ever fired anybody and you tell them you're fired. I'm praying for you. I hope everything turns out great. I pray God is with you. I pray God's favor, but don't come back here. That's a tough conversation to have, right? They're not receiving it. I just want you to understand that they're not receiving that at all. Well, that's kind of what's going on in this story. He said, I pray God delivers you, but I'm chunking you in anyway. He's in a dilemma because his integrity is on the line. Listen to me. There are some people in your life who you think are opposed to you, who are only doing what they have to do in order to keep their integrity. They're not opposed to you. There's a difference between confrontation and opposition. And you've got to learn that. You've got to learn in your life the people who are confronting you because of integrity issues and people who are opposed to you and trying to bring you down. That is a completely different animal. Darius really is hoping God comes through for him. The other ones are not. They're standing back cheering like, yes, woo, thank God. They may not be doing it out loud, but in their heart they're going, woohoo, he's going down. It says, a stone was brought and placed over the mouth of the den. The king sealed the stone with his royal seal and the seals of his nobles so that no one could rescue Daniel. Then the king returned to his palace and spent the night fasting. I usually fast during the night too. I said, I don't know. That was weird to me, and that's what I thought when I read it. I was like, yeah, I don't eat during the night either. Anyway, he says he refused his usual entertainment and couldn't sleep at all that night. Very early the next morning, the king got up and hurried out to the lion's den. When he got there, he called out in anguish. Darius is concerned about Daniel's situation. He genuinely is. The rest of these clowns are not. Darius is. Darius has been troubled because he knows how valuable Daniel is to the kingdom. He knows the things that he does for him. And when he got there, it says he called out in anguish, Daniel, servant of the living God. I want you to notice these other dudes had no interest in the living God. Darius did. Darius had seen the writing on the wall. He probably was in the room. Darius knew who Daniel was. He had seen how he had lived. He had seen how he had worked. He says, was your God whom you serve so faithfully able to rescue you from the lions? Daniel answered. Daniel knew who was on his side. Long live the king. He didn't say, in spite of you, right? He could have. He could have said, yeah, in spite of you throwing me in here. That's not what he said. This has been ringing around in my head. Daniel spoke truth to kings and still served kings at the same time. In the church, we've made the mistake that we can't serve people that we disagree with. Come on now. You can speak truth and still serve at the same time. That's the mark of character. The mark of character isn't you speak truth and you sit over here and hold out until it gets your way. No. The truth of a servant is I'm telling you what you need to hear, but I'm serving you anyway. That's exactly what Daniel did. Daniel said, you're going to die, Jack. He told a couple of them that, by the way, but he still served them. He never withheld the truth. And he says, it says, my God sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths so that they would not hurt me, for I have been found innocent in his sight. I just have to tell y'all, things like this don't happen to me very often. But I have to tell this because I believe it is for some people in this room. It may be for a person. If you notice when I was reading the passage of Scripture, it choked me up when I got to this part. Because as I was standing over here singing, I saw lions trying to eat godly people. And there are some people in this room who this moment, you feel like you're in the pit and the lion's getting ready to devour you. I just need to give some of you some assurance that the angel of the Lord will shut the lion's mouth. I don't know if it's for a person or for some people. I just know that the enemy is trying to destroy people's lives. And he's manipulating and working and deceiving in order to get to people. And I believe that God will shut the mouth of lions and deliver his people. He says, and I have not wronged you, your majesty. The king was overjoyed and ordered that Daniel be lifted from the den. Not a scratch was found on him, for he had trusted in his God. Then the king gave orders to arrest the men who had maliciously accused Daniel. He had them thrown in the lion's den, along with their wives and children. How would you like to be married to one of these dudes? What have you done now, Joe? You know, the lions leaped on them and tore them apart before they even hit the floor of the den. Let me just stop right here. Now, that's was a joke, but I'm going to tell you something. If you yoke yourself with evil people, expect there to be consequences. Boy, there's so many things I could preach in this story. Then King Darius sent his message to the people of every race and nation and language throughout the world. Peace and prosperity to you. I decree that everyone throughout my kingdom should tremble with fear before the Lord, before the God of Daniel, for he is the living God, and he will endure forever. And his kingdom will never be destroyed, and his rule will never end. He rescues and saves his people. He performs miraculous signs and wonders in the heavens and on earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. God delivered Daniel. That's the end of the story. But he had to go through the lion's den to experience the deliverance. The thing I know for most of us in this room is we want the prospering that comes with following after God. We want the good that comes. We want the favor that you read all about here. But we don't want any part of the pit. We don't want any part of the lion's den. We don't want any part of the struggle. We don't want any part of the heartache. But I can tell you this, there's no good deliverance without a good den. Right? You can't be delivered unless you're in there. God can't shut the mouth of the lions unless you're inside of it. And so don't fret. If you're doing the right thing and you're honoring God and you're following after Him, don't fret when you find yourself in a den of lions. Because I believe God will deliver His people every single time. He says, the angel of the Lord came. It's very similar wording. It's slightly different, but very similar wording that we find a few chapters earlier when Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are thrown in the fiery furnace and a fourth man appears like the Son of God. Very, very similar wording. Showed up every time. The beauty of the Old Testament is that it's always pointing to the New Testament, that Jesus was always showing up, and there were pictures of Him, symbols of Him, images of Him in the Old Testament until He finally shows up in the flesh. And in His life, there were people who were constantly manipulating, deceiving, in an attempt to kill Him. They would lie. They would go to whatever means to try to get rid of Jesus. And in the end, Jesus had to walk that road to death. And when we take communion together, we get to celebrate that Jesus was obedient even unto death. His faithfulness to follow what God desired for Him to do, that led Him to the cross, to be buried and rise again, gives us the ability to experience victory in every single area of our life. We get excited about the resurrection, and we should. I just want to remind you that there was a cross and a grave before there was a resurrection. Just like there was a pit and lions before Daniel was delivered, there was a cross and a grave before Jesus rose from it. And we have to understand that sometimes for us to have this on this side, there are things we've got to go through before that.